picture of gold teeth and the words "I need money" written on them, and it's ending with a Twitter feud with former Raven Bernard Pollard, who wrote that the top wideouts, quote, don't want to play with them. Now, Pollard joined KJM Radio yesterday and took his criticism of Jackson further. Take a listen.
Has he gotten better since day one of being there? Yes. Is he an inconsistent football player at the quarterback position? Yes. I truly believe he's a top 10 talent, but not a top 10 quarterback. I do agree he's gotten better, but when it's all said and done, I do not believe he's a consistent quarterback that's going to be able to take this team to the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay. So harsh words. And Brooke, are these comments by Pollard? Because I have to admit, this guy Canty and I scratching our heads. He's a top 10 talent, but not a top 10 quarterback. Couldn't quite jibe that one. But is that reflective of what you're hearing around the league? You know,
it's funny. I heard the exact same thing from a player recently when that list came out, because I was surprised that he wasn't a top 10 quarterback. Lamar Jackson is a top 10 quarterback to me. Mm-hmm. And I had a player say to me, no, he's not a top 10 quarterback. He's a top 10 talent, almost exactly what Pollard said before he said it. So this is not an uncommon train of thought. But I will say, one of the things that was tweeted yesterday in this Twitter storm was Hollywood Brown coming out and saying, defending his former quarterback, saying, like, no, Lamar Jackson can do whatever Lamar Jackson wants to do. He can run any type of offense. This is a guy who would know. Granted, he wanted to get away from the Ravens, but I think that was less a Lamar Jackson issue and more an issue with the offense, with how Greg Roman runs things there.
Yeah, and there's that tweet. Facts, the narrative they're trying to create on my dog is ridiculous. He can run the show in any type of offense. He just so happened to be in the one he's in and doing it at a top level. And every wide receiver who ever played with him knows that. And Lamar responds with the hearts emojis, loving his boy. Okay, so Lewis, what's your reaction to this criticism by Bernard Pollard of Lamar?
Well, I think this kind of narrative, this kind of conversation surrounding Lamar obviously goes all the way back to when he was coming out of Louisville and people were suggesting that he changed positions, and the kind of things and the kind of connotations that came with that, the kind of stereotypes that came with it. And Lamar has been trying to fight those, whether directly or indirectly. I mean, he doesn't necessarily talk about that because he kind of lets all that roll off his back and he just continues to be better. But that's where this all started. The fact that, well, maybe Lamar is just, a good athlete playing the quarterback position, but he can't play it traditionally like everyone else can, like other quarterbacks have, like other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks have been able to play it. Well, I disagree with that as well, especially considering, I've been down there numerous times, talked to his coaches, talked to him about the kind of responsibility that they have put on him and the kind of growth that he has experienced. And the fact that he can do everything that other quarterbacks can do from the pocket on third down. But does he need to be more consistent? Of course he does. But this started a long time ago. It's very disappointing to hear other players, other former Ravens, start to talk about him in this way and starting to throw these kind of things on top of everything else that is going on with him. Ultimately, what will get people off of Lamar's back is for him to win the ultimate prize, for him to win a Super Bowl title, regardless of how he leads them to it, regardless of what the run-pass ratio is, regardless of whether or not he's a guy who's throwing outside the pocket, inside the pocket, because the league ultimately respects winners. And it's very, very disappointing for us to continue to have this kind of conversation about whether he's a top 10 quarterback or is he just a top 10 athlete, because no one else is subjected to this kind of thing, and it really is unfair to him.
I think it's a great point. Because he is a dynamic, transcendent player at the position. And this idea of he's the athlete, he's not the quarterback, it just goes back years and decades to what we've constantly heard in here. What do you think about these positions and about what Pollard said?
Well, I think Bernard Pollard's take on Lamar Jackson is as ridiculous of the clips circulating around social media of Bernard Pollard twerking on Hard Knocks. That's how I feel about it. But think about this. You're talking about a quarterback that wins 76% of your starts. I mean, that's ultimately the objective. You want a quarterback that can elevate the players around him and give your team the best possible chance to compete every single Sunday. And let's take it a step further. When you think about the AFC as a whole, who are the best quarterbacks in the AFC? I mean, according to the survey that Jeremy Fowler did of Executives in the National Football League, it's Pat Mahomes and it's Josh Allen. Well, Lamar Jackson is a quarterback that's beat both of them. He beat Josh Allen in Buffalo. So you're going to have to go through those two quarterbacks in order to accomplish the ultimate goal, which is to win a championship. Lamar Jackson has that potential. Just because we haven't seen a quarterback do it the way that Lamar has done it doesn't mean that it's not possible to compete and win at the highest level. And so I think we got to dispel this misnomer that Lamar Jackson, because of his style of play, can't win that way. And Steve Young, Hall of Famer, I respect his football acumen. One of the things that he always tells me is you got to have a quarterback that can take advantage of all the free yards out there in today's game. Lamar Jackson is that dude and some.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, Brooke, I look at Lamar Jackson, and I understand the argument of he hasn't won that many playoff games. He's only got one win. But at the same time, this whole team rises and falls by him. When he does a deal, he might end up being the highest-paid quarterback in the league. And there's a reason for that, and it's the way he plays.
No, you're exactly right. And it's funny, I had another coach tell me, you know, remember when everyone was saying that he was a running back and then he went out and played Miami in 2019 and had 5 passing touchdowns? Like, this guy is a talented quarterback. I mean, it is frustrating that this continues to be kind of the carousel of Lamar Jackson, the cycle of it. I mean, I feel like we remember the things that he's not good at every offseason, and then we need to look back at some of these box scores and highlights from things like the Miami game in 2019, the Colts game last season.
My way. If things go really smoothly and we win, that'd be great. I think I would obviously be the greatest way to end, Brady said. I just have a competitive fire that got the best of me. So I love how he leaves it open, you guys. But I got to say, thinking about Brady playing into 50 is a real possibility. Brooke, what do players say about this competitive fire that Brady's talking about?
The first thing I think about is Tyrann Mathieu and Tom Brady just absolutely going at it in that Super Bowl in 2020. Yep. I mean, I talked with Mike Evans after that game, and he's the one who said, man, we love that. We love the competitive fire. We feed off of that, and you can see it in the way that Brady just elevates the rest of the team, and I think that that's a competitive fire. Some guys, I think, get too competitive, get inside their own head. When Brady is like that, he's surgical, and that's how he played in 2020. I think this competitive fire that's fueling him, it's going to keep burning a lot longer.
And I can't see it going away anytime soon. Canty, what do you think are the chances that that competitive fire, that competitive spirit, leads him to a Super Bowl win?
I think they've got a pretty good chance because when you compare the two conferences, I think the AFC is by far the deeper of the two. And so I think Tampa is on the short list of teams out of the NFC that can represent that conference in the Super Bowl. And you think about where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are positioned in the NFC South. So they're going to have a clear path to get to the postseason. And think about what Tom Brady does in the postseason. You're talking about them in last year's divisional round at home, coming a Von Miller strip sack and a Cooper Kupp Hail Mary at the end of the game away from advancing to another NFC championship game, their second consecutive. So based on the way that Tom Brady is playing, think about it, guys. 10,000 yards, 83 touchdowns to 24 picks in the 2 years he's been in Tampa. It's the best 2-year span of his career. When you're at the height of your powers, when you're playing as good as Tom Brady is, why would you want to walk away? Why would you want to give all of that up? So after his 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, you know what he decided?
What?
To come back and play football because the guy is not only the GOAT, he's Jesus in cleats.
Jesus in cleats. There we go. Lewis, follow that. What do you think?
I don't know if I can follow Jesus in cleats, but I'll give it a shot. Look, I think Tom is the ultimate control freak in terms of how he wants all of this to end. He doesn't want anyone scooping the story. He doesn't want anyone putting out any kind of press release that says he's retiring, and then he has to come out secondhand and say, yeah, I guess I got to confirm what everyone else already knows. He wants to write the script. He wants to control every single step of the way as far as how people perceive the end of his career. And I think, you know, to speak to Chris and Brooks' point, I think this is a guy who he is playing at the height of his career right now in terms of his production. And you know what? The league is set up that way. The game is set up that way. It's never been easier for quarterbacks to go ahead and dice up defenses and throw for just Star Wars types of numbers. Just talk to some of the old quarterbacks who played back in the 80s and 90s in terms of how the rules have changed and how it's much easier to now sit back in the pocket, not get touched, have wide receivers be able to run across the middle of the field, not be contested, and just put up these types of numbers. If you're of Tom Brady's ability, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you keep playing and collecting money like this and continue to push those record books way, way, way past beyond what anyone will probably ever touch. Smart money.
Yeah.
Smart
and every
man.
year, it seems like he's in the play. He's got a chance to win it all. So, Brooke, is there actually a possibility, because he likes to win, that's the key, and it feels like that's more important than where he goes or where he's playing. Is there actually a chance that he might not end it all in Tampa?
I think so. I mean, it won't be as fun because it's not as alliterative as Tampa Tom. But, I mean, could we see him in Miami? I'm not ruling it out. That felt like it almost happened this last year. Could he end up in San Francisco if Trey Lance doesn't pan out? Maybe. I feel like the glass kind of broke once he left New England. Like,